Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. We are here today to go through and do a video that has been requested so many times, I don't even know how many times it's been requested. How to pick a Chrono class. That is the conundrum that we are going to be trying to solve and help you out with today. A huge shout out to Nandor, allowed me to use the resources that they've created in order to help you guys out. There is going to be a really nice diagram. I will also pin you a link down below to more in-depth information, which is available from Nandor's website. Anyway, let us jump straight into this and have a look at this image. So, long story short, we are starting at the top, and do you want a useful class? The first one we're coming across is Underworld Chrono. I must stress to you, this is not a tier list of the classes. Underworld Chrono is an S tier soloer, however, it is in the not useful category, because if you're going to buy yourself Underworld Chrono and spend the money on it, well, to be honest, you might as well just be buying Corrupted Chronomancer, which we'll come on to a little bit later on. Underworld Chrono offers various different playstyles due to being able to add timepieces onto your class into your skill 6 slot. However, it doesn't do quite the damage as Corrupted Chrono, but on the upside, it is a lot simpler to use. And next up in the know for a useful class is going to be ChronoCorrupter. Crucially, do not get this mixed up with Corrupted Chrono / Timeless, which again, we will be talking about later on. So this class, it tries to be a crit chrono, a damage over time, however, it's not overly great at either compared to other classes. As with most classes though, its performance can still be increased with the use of Forge enhancement, so that's worth bearing in mind, but there's just no point really picking this when you've got all these other lovely options available to you. Next up, we have Infinity Knight / Interstellar Knight, and the less said about this one, the better. Just avoid it, it's pretty useless. So, presuming you now want a useful class, do you have Legion Revenant, Archmage, or Ezlium? And if you do not, you could have a look at Nechronomancer. Now, that's not to say that is exclusively the only reason to get Nechronomancer. This one is easily a top 3 farming class. It is one of my favourites. It's what I stick on all the time when I go farming. To be quite frank, as far as base classes go, the only thing that's going to be beating it DPS-wise is actually going to be Archmage. So if you haven't got an endgame farming class, the Chronomancer is definitely going to be worth picking up. And not to mention, you can use the combo El Spammo with this one. Anyway, back to our graph. So if you like Ultras, then these are the ones for you. First of all, we have Chrono Commander / Chrono Commander. This one is a tanky class. Previously, you would have seen it used in Ultra battles. However, nowadays, there are more superior kind of support / Ultra specific classes to be using. So this is what we're moving on to next. And those classes specifically is going to be, you guessed it, Continuum Chrono, which is also known as Quantum Chrono, and the most recent one, Paladin Chronomancer. Let us start, however, with Continuum. So this one is a great top tier support class and is used in Ultra battles. It does have a reasonable nuke with it, however its purpose is group play, so not much point soloing with this class, although it can easily do it. Specifically though, if you're wanting to speed up a battle, your group DPS increase, this is the class to be putting on. Just off the top of my head, Ultra battles you'll be using this in will be things like Ultra Malgor. You can also stick it on in Ultra Nilgav, and not to mention Tindarius as well. That's not an exclusive list, that's just kind of a brief summary. So that just leaves us with Paladin Chronomancer in the do you do Ultras category. Paladin Chrono is the class you'll be running instead of Arch Paladin when you're doing Ultra fights. This one is another great support class, but this time round it is a tank / healer. While it still has the normal Chrono stacking mechanic, it is far less powerful as far as a nuke goes on it, but that doesn't matter as you can build a very large damage over time, which is super OP if you do play in PvP. You can also apply a strong heal over time for your team, which is actually very useful in Champion Draft. The other important thing not to forget is when you're hitting skill 4 on this class, you get a massive endurance boost, so your health really can go through the roof, which opens this up as a great class to do the taunting with the Scrolls of Enrage. Anyway, let us head back to our picture. So why do you want a Chrono? If you want to kill a boss, do you like thinking? So if you like thinking, then these are going to be the classes for you. Corrupted Chrono / Timeless, we spoke about this one earlier. This is the buffed up version of Underworld Chrono. This class is extremely powerful for solo battles, however it is incredibly complicated to use. It utilizes hourglasses and corruptions to change the playstyle and how it performs. If you do put in the time, however, into learn this class, it will serve you well, and it's arguably, for quite a few people in the game, the best Chrono you can get. However, I would take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, because it's not really one I'm ever going to be buying, so it kind of just depends what you're really looking for, which is the whole point of this video. Next up, we have Shadow Stalker of Time and its variants, another class that will require a fair amount of thinking. However, it does really high DPS, it has max dodge, and overall is a really OP Chrono class. Much like Corrupted Chrono, it does take some time to learn the rotations to use this class properly. However, it is nowhere near as hard as the previous class we spoke about, as you'll only have to learn playstyle as opposed to adding in hourglasses and corruptions into it. So that's where the difference is. Shadow Stalker could also potentially be one of those classes, once you equip it, you just don't need to unequip it again, much like a Legion Revenant and also a Void High Lord. Now then, if you do not like thinking, however, there are still a couple classes you can have a look at, and one of them is my particular favourite. Timekeeper slash TimeKiller. Once upon a time, it was the Infinity Knight slash laughing stock of the Chrono world. However, nowadays it's roided up, it had a great buff applied to it, and it is one of the best solo classes you're able to get in the game. I always compare it as the Chrono Void High Lord, so if you do not have a super strong solo class, this is definitely the one that you should be buying, in my opinion. Not to forget, it is also a really simple class to use, and that is very, very crucial. Okay, next up we have Chronomancer slash Chrono Prime. The OG Chrono is still half decent. It's a reliable class with a short cooldown. However, unless you are just rinsing bosses in a team, there are better options and best to pick TimeKiller instead. At this point, we can move backwards slightly. So why do you need a Chrono? So if it's not to kill bosses and it's all about fat orange numbers, then this is where you head over to. So if you have friends, the class you'll be looking at is Chrono Dragonknight slash DataKnight. This Chrono relies quite a lot on team play, which is why it's so effective against certain bosses needed in farming quests slash merge chains. You only have to look back over the last couple years and we saw how good it was at nuking ultra bosses. However, this is the reason that boss shields were added, as apparently one tapping the engineer was slightly too cheesy. But crucially, if you only want big orange numbers, then this is the class to get. Now, if we look down the other way, if you have not got friends, you want to go for Eternal Chrono slash Immortal Chrono. This class has an easy but lengthy combo, but it will set up a massive nuke. This is the highest hitting Chrono. Again, it's just a class all about the big crits. I have got another really useful diagram to show you in just a moment, but before we move on from this particular one, let's just quickly go over this. So things I would be thinking about actually getting would be something like Nechronomancer if you need a half decent farming class. As far as the supports go, Continuum Chrono is a really great option. However, I personally find that Paladin Chrono is slightly funner to play, but they do both serve a slightly different purpose, so maybe it could be worth picking up both of those. But ultimately, Paladin is all about the heals and tanking, whereas Continuum is all about adding to your group's DPS. Then we come down to the killing bosses section. So TimeKiller is definitely a class you should be picking up if you don't have it and haven't got a good soloing one like Void High Lord. And if you would like something a bit of a challenge, then probably Corrupted Chrono is the way to go. Although Shadow Stalker of Time is old but gold, so maybe that could also be worth an option for you thinking about. Big orange numbers is not something I've ever been particularly worried about in game, but if that is something that interests you, you have two very good options over there on the right hand side. And lastly, here is just a final little diagram to show you. Don't panic, it will enlarge in a moment's time just so you can see it in slightly more detail. As with all these things, they are subjective ever so slightly to opinion and what you're actually after and looking for in a chrono, but hopefully this guide has given you some sort of inclination into which way you could go and to which classes you definitely should avoid. Cough, Infinity Knight. Anyway folks, as I said earlier, a huge shout out to Nandor for allowing me to use these diagrams and the hard work that has of course been put in. I'll put a link down below to Nandor's website so you can go over there if you would like any further details on these classes. There's a little bit more information on all of those that you can find. However folks, for now that is it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll be back for another one incredibly soon. So until then, have a lovely day.